Okay, this is chapter number 10 of Shields and Butsu. It is all about the 20th century and the reforms that were made in the denominations, both here and in Europe. Uh, in retrospect, the 20th century was a very large time of war and upheaval, but the book states that it wasn't all bombs and bullets at this point in time. The churches were changing. The space of the churches changed a lot. And sometimes they became very sparse modern structures, uh, built like the rest of the buildings of the time, or they became more traditional in the Gothic or the colonial style buildings. The same trend started in Europe, while other parts of the world, churches began using local materials and building styles instead of, in the past, as they had done, importing European and American designs and supplies. People had started to find that they looked so foreign that it was just out of place. The aspect of the Christian year also became more popular. The church added several more days besides Christmas, and Easter. These included, but are not limited to, All Saints' Day and Pentecost. Some of the movements also began to change a bit. The Pentecostal and charismatic movements began to change the most. For one, like the big thing for them is they insisted the conversion experience was necessary, which would be followed by a second experience of grace for sanctification. It was no longer as simple as it had been before. These churches left their historic denominations to form a new cluster of churches and connections, which included the Church of the Nazarene, the Free Methodist Church, and the Wesleyan Church. Most of them were boisterous assemblies where people could sing and give testimonies. They would put out shouts of praise, and prayers would typically be with many people all together. Some of the much more radical preachers and congregations started doing things like handling snakes and drinking poison. They did this as a testimony of faith in the God who promised his believers safety. This is found in Mark 16:18. We can look back and see that sometimes that didn't always come out as they had hoped. Music had a major role in the Pentecostals' way of life. They sang old hymns that were popular in the church. They sang traditional Southern gospel, and they sang some of the newer gospel songs. It's been recorded that sometimes they enjoyed the phenomenon of singing in the Spirit, which is a group of worshipers that would sing together in moving, uncomposed harmonies. Sometimes they would sing in tongues, sometimes they would sing in the vernacular, and sometimes they would just hum in non-linguistic sound. Just be there together. A lot of them started to set music to Scripture and make praise choruses out of Scripture. While this was going on in the newer denominations and congregations, there were several movements back to the liturgical renewal. A lot of these were part of the Eastern Orthodox, the Roman Catholic, and the mainline Protestant denominations. As the 20th century continued, we saw a growing gap between the newer denominations and the more traditional ones. However, the good thing is they all still wanted people to come to Jesus, which is the most encouraging part of all of it. Scripture had come to outweigh denominational tradition as the primary authority in making decisions about worship. And that is chapter 10 in a nutshell.